Welcome to another live episode of Halftime Adjustments. It's your host, Eddie out there. My man, Mr. J. Lou. What's going on, J. Lou?
What's going on, Ed? Tighten up, baby. Tighten up.
Tighten up, man. G Witt is on vacation, so you got me and J. Lou holding it down this week on the
Yes,
show,
sir.
man. And so, J. Lou, man, it's getting that time of the year. The schedule has come out. We've had some OTAs with the rookies. We've had some undrafted free agent signings. We've had the team come back, minus a few of the stars, working on their own. And so,
Right.
A lot has been mentioned about the approach to this off season's workouts, man. They've said Vrabel's been saying callus, build a callus so that when it
Build the
gets tough
callus.
during the season, that they can withstand the punishment of the season and hopefully reduce those injuries that they've had the last 2 years. 17 games, as you know, it's a grind for the season, man.
Yeah. Most definitely, man. I think it's good to see. I think about some of the young guys. I know we mentioned on our closing out show that some of these guys need to train with Bayard. And you
Mm-hmm.
saw Roger McQuarrie mention that he's been doing some training with Bayard this off season. You've seen a lot more of the new guys coming in and get acclimated. You heard Azir last week said not too many teams he know hitting the sleds in OTAs.
Right.
I think it's a good sign as a fan to see Vrabel trying anything. I think it was this week when he had a little some press availability. He said he was still contemplating. The question was brought up, the last couple of years you've given guys rest in the preseason, et cetera, and he said, that everything's still on the table right now. And I think that's good to see because again, we know he treats the first quarter of the season like preseason, like most of the
Right.
teams do when you got so many games. But when you've had a gazillion injuries back-to-back season, you've got to change something. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see pads a little bit more as we get in earlier in training camp, as opposed to having so many days. They got to have so many days off in between with CBAs and all, but it wouldn't shock me if we see a little bit more of that, just to get these guys to get past the soft tissue injuries that has plagued this team for 2 years now.
Yeah, you hope, man, that and a lot to talk about this, the change of the surface of the field. And so we'll see what happens, man. Hopefully, this year we can get past the injury bug. We also saw some undrafted free agency signed, like I mentioned earlier, particularly in the wide receiver room. And Copeland is a name that people are buzzing about. The kid out of Maryland that went to Florida and run a 4.41. Some of the guys that they brought in, some guys from some speed. And so, very exciting times for the Titans. But tonight, man, we're going to start. And those of you who've been rocking with us for the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, we break down the schedule in quarters. So tonight we're going to talk about the first quarter of the season, the 2023 season for the Tennessee Titans, man. And they start on the road, J. Lou, at the Saints, man. The Saints on September 10th, 12 o'clock kickoff on the road. The Saints finished 7-10 last year, 19th overall. Offense averaging over 300 yards a game, 19 points a game, 5th on defense. Pretty tough defense. Always tough to play the Saints. 314 yards, giving up 20.3 points a game, 5th in total defense. So, of course, the big name they add is Derek Carr, J. Lou. And this is a team that has struggled at the quarterback position. And we'll talk about another team tonight since Drew Brees has left, right? And so is Derek Carr the guy, J. Lou, for the Saints this year? You're muted.
Yeah, let me take myself off mute. That's twice tonight. I'm so used to pausing for G Wit. I'm gonna blame that. Man, you saw what. So Derek Carr is, and as a Titan fan, there was a lot of chatter that folks thought, if we still had good old Todd, that they want to bring Carr in, and none of us agreed with that because Tannehill to me is better than Carr. Yeah, Carr is younger and all, but Carr hasn't proved it yet. And he's had some weapons. They've had he had Devontae Adams and had one of the best tight ends in the league and Waller, but just hasn't been able to get over that hump. Now I'll give you this: he's a very tough guy.
Right.
And again, a lot of those Raiders teams, it'd be curious to see how he looks with this Saints team if this Saints defense holds true to form. Because if you just go back and look at some of these Raiders teams, the defenses have let him down, not holding up their end of the bargain. But I like the Titans in this position to get them early. You got a team that's installing. You got a quarterback that's got to learn a new system.
Right.
The wild card that's out there is that they're arguably their best offensive player might not be eligible. And Alvin Kamara, he's still got a suspension looming out there from the Vegas incident. So, catching them early. And again, you like that their offense is having to change, which is going against the best thing that we got on our team, which would be our defense. So we know, we saw Carr light the Titans up in the second half last year when they came in here and still ultimately took an L with just making one of David Carr throws down there on the goal line that I think Byard picked off the 2-point conversion.
Right.
But I really like. I think he fits well when you look at that NFC South. Both conferences South divisions are just plagued with not great teams per se. You got Tom Brady that came out of there, as you mentioned. After Drew Brees left, they went through the Jameis Winston experience. They even got Taysom Hill, his last Hill, Taysom Hill, that they gave quarterback money to still be the gadget man. So it'd be interesting to see. But I kind of like the Titans going on the road first as opposed to opening up here at home.
Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting matchup, like you said, man. Derek Carr, change of scenery usually works for a lot of people, and maybe this time he strikes it rich with the Saints. But like you said, Alvin Kamara is pending right now. They also picked up Jamal Williams, a big bruising running back for the Detroit Lions, so that gives them that 1-2 punch. Foster Moreau at tight end. And so you got some weapons there for Derek Carr. You still got Michael Thomas and among others on that offense that they can give some people some problems. You look at their schedule from last year; they really didn't lose games by a lot. And so I think, in their minds, they got a quarterback now potentially that could get them over the hump. The NFC South is wide open this year. You got a couple of new first-year quarterbacks. You got a rookie in Bryce Young, right? And then you got Baker Mayfield in Tampa. And so between the Falcons and the Saints, the division's wide open. And so a couple of key pickups in the draft for the Saints. Brian Brees, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, highly rated tackle coming out of college. He could be a health concern going forward. He stayed banged up a little bit. Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame, 12.5 tackles for loss, 11 sacks. So a guy's productive to add to a defense that's already good with Cam Jordan, among others. Kendre Miller, running back out of TCU. Again, another guy that can come in and run the ball well, effectively, had over 1,400 yards rushing. And then A.T. Perry, which I thought the Titans should have scooped up in the later rounds, wide receiver out of Wake Forest. And so,
wide receiver.
Right. Yeah. A tough defense and an offense that has skill positions. Nico, the question is Carr the answer for this football team, man? But it's going to be a tough road game, like you said, at home for the Saints, on the road with the Titans and a new offense. Who knows how much Vrabel's going to play the starters in preseason, right? Jay Lou, do you think anything might change from that viewpoint from the last two seasons that he decided not to play those starters in the preseason and see the results?
Yeah, so I think that you see the starters. So they said that the NFL wanted them to cut back on joint practices to kind of help with some of the injuries. So we probably see the Patriots as a joint practice. That's the last preseason game here at home, where last year we did 2 of them back to back. And then you got to think we got to see one of the training camps. They're not going game speed hard out there when they in the joint practices, even though you're getting in work against another team. So I think you see now. I still think the guy that's on the screen with us, Derrick Henry. I still think you don't see him get a rep or two. The only caveat I'd give to that is, and we've said it the last couple of years, we've got potentially, well, we know for a fact, 4 new starting positions on the offensive line.
Right.
So not only do you need Tannehill to replicate that in game mode, but you also need your running back. Who knows? I mean, that the running scheme might be changed up a little bit. I mean, we don't have, when you look at the offensive line, we don't have the big slow guys that are good for run blocking. We got some athletic speed now, so that can change that up. So I think it's worth giving them a series or 2 throughout the preseason just to ramp them up, especially when you've dealt with, it ain't, we know what you've tried to do the past 2 years and it ain't worked with the injuries. Try something different.
Right. Exactly. And so like you said, man, try something different. Let's see what happens. Week 2, man, a division rival, which I think has increased somewhat after last season, how they beat us in here at home, and then had to go on the road to Jacksonville and beat them to wrap up the division and fell short. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars week 2, man. I'm sorry. I looked ahead. The Chargers week 2. Excuse me. Apologize. So 12 o'clock kickoff game at home. And what I was going to say is the Chargers lost to the Jags in the wild card round of the playoffs last year. 9th overall offense, 359 yards a game, 23 points a game, 20th ranked defense, 346 yards given up, just over almost 23 points a game. And so, Justin Herbert had a league second in the league in passing, 4,700 yards. So a breakout year for him, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Pretty much they kept their own. They're in-house free agents in the offseason.
Yeah.
The biggest question out there is Austin Eckler. Will he still be there when the season starts? He requested a trade, right? And so and the biggest free agent pickup they had was Eric Kendricks out of Minnesota, middle linebacker. So Jay, this is a team we played last year, right, on the road. Had him on the ropes. A big play by Mike Williams kind of sealed up the game. McCreary had a interception off a tip by Joshua Kalu in the end zone. So a tough game again at home this time. Season opening game at home for the two-tone blue. What's your take on this game, man?
If I'm not mistaken, is this one of the several that Tannehill got hurt again?
I think he did get hurt in this one.
I think he got hurt again in this one.
And came back in it.
It came back in. And to your point, we had them on the ropes. We seem to play very well against the Chargers, just come up short in the Vrabel era, but we played them well. I know you're afraid of that basketball team that they put out there at wide receiver and tight end, but I thought we held our own with that defensive line, because I think if there's one weak spot that you saw against the Chargers, and I really don't think they did a lot to shore that up, is that offensive line. You could get after that offensive line, and you saw that when the Jags made their comeback in the playoff game. So Justin Herbert, he's again another one of these rising star young gun quarterbacks that likes to sling the ball. They run an up tempo style offense. Again, the wild card is Eckler, because he does so much out of the backfield for him. And it's hard to replicate that. But again, if you can just continue to get after the quarterback, and again, you would, barring injuries, of course, we have to say that, you would think that our front four, getting Harold back, getting a healthy Jeff, a healthy Danico, you would think they would be ready to eat on their defense. So this is going to be a good game. Again, you got the Chargers. If I'm not mistaken, you said this is a noon kickoff, so that's 10 a.m. for them. A West Coast team coming east early in the morning. Usually that trends well for the Central Time Zone team. So probably catching them in a good spot coming in here. But again, this would be a tough game. And again, it's an AFC game. So we saw how it came down near the end last year. The AFC games that you just give away at the beginning of the season, they can come back to bite you when you start thinking about tiebreakers for playoff situations.
Right. And you think the Chargers might have a coach on the hot seat this year, 2 seasons in a row where he didn't produce anything, defensive minded guy, but he just hadn't, he calls the defense, and maybe that's something he needs. He changes up this year, let somebody else coach the defense, because it just hadn't been working for him. But, notable draft picks for these guys, Quentin Johnston, which was another receiver I thought the Titans was probably going to pick up, out of TCU, 6'3", 208. So another big body receiver for this offense, with already Keenan Allen and Mike Williams to go along with Gerald Everett, the tight end. So like you mentioned, they have some weapons, some guys that can win the 50-50 balls. And that's a concern, J. Lou. We talked about that last year during the game, is McQuarrie going up against Mike Williams, 6'5", Keenan Allen, 6'4", and now you got Johnston at 6'3", and so you got some mismatches as far as jump balls, right? And so it's very imperative that they get pressure on Herbert early in the game and often, and push that pocket and make him, uncomfortable as much as possible. And
if I'm not mistaken, because the game is replaying in my head now, I'm almost thinking that play that Williams made, Herbert was getting pressured. We was just a half a second off, because I thought Big Jeff or somebody was in his face, and he made the play that receiver that tall supposed to make. And again, as we mentioned when we did the game review on them last year, their receivers scare you just because of the 50-50 balls and they're going up and getting them, but they don't really have any burners that you can get behind and get lost on. And I think that played into the Titans' hands a little bit last year with our given our deficiencies. When you look about the height size, I think that played an advantage to us until the very end. So if you can kind of duplicate that a little bit better, and then again go in with more bodies, that more of your superstar bodies on that D line with game 2, you hope that outcome can be a little different this time.
Right. And again, it's going to be a tough game. A young quarterback, a team that has drafted their franchise quarterback, right, and has really built well around him. But like you said, didn't make any major improvements to the offensive line. This re-signed a few guys that they had in from last year. Of course, got Joey Bosa on the defensive side, Khalil Mack, Kenneth Murray at linebacker, and J.C. Jackson. He missed last year because of injury. He should be back potentially. And Asante Samuel Jr. He came on strong last season. So along with Derwin James at safety, man, they have a tough defense. But the back end is susceptible to getting beat. Like I said, because of injuries, and then there is opportunity also to run the football on them, and which the Titans need to do. And you speak of up tempo, just listening to what the guys are saying in the facility is that the offense is more speed to it this year for the Titans. So, it'd be interesting to see, Jay. Look, we thought last year, and we said it last year, the year before that when the tempo of the offense picked up, it looked like it was more effective.
So it was one comment from Burks that talked about going out there now and having some freedom and having fun, that made me think about what we said last year, is that and if you really look at the last 2 years, I think Ty Downing, I don't think his offense allowed any audible flexibility where if I called the play, let's run it. And that comment to me kind of came across like that hey, this is my plan, I want you to do it, whether it works or not, we'll see. But we also mentioned Titans 2 years ago was the best 2-minute team in the league. That's right. And anytime we was in 2 minute, we seen the 2 minute puts you in advantage. Now, this is the one thing, I don't know about you, Ed, but I think the one thing I was excited about to hear, it might be some tempo, meaning that you might see a little bit more no huddle. That just means that you have to keep the same offense on the field. You don't want to sub because you give the defense a chance to sub. And how many times last year did whoever was on first down for the Titans, we changed on second, we changed every single down with our packages. So if you get a chance to keep this grouping in there and run 4, 5, 6 plays, not only you have the defense sucking wind, but you get your guys into a rhythm and can keep attacking. So that's something that I'm hoping we do see with the message of up tempo.
Yeah, so let's give a shout out a few posts. Rodney Gaddis, man, thank you for joining us. Like Will says, no Green Mile this year. So no, Will, we don't. But we got some young gunslingers on the schedule this year, man. Darius Williams is on there with us. Dion, man, what's going on, my guy? He says he thinks our offense is going to be way better this year because we got somebody who knows what they're doing with the offense. So yeah, we hope and pray, man. Is so far it sounds so good. To hear what the players are saying about the offense thus far. Another pickup for the Chargers in the draft, Tuli Tupuyapo, 6'3", 266-pound defensive end, edge guy from USC, is Pac-12 Player of the Year and led the nation with 13.5 sacks and 22 tackles for loss. Second with 22 tackles for loss. And so, again, you add another player to the front of that defense that's already pretty stellar and, just going to make for a tough. The AFC is stacked, man. If anything that we found out is that the AFC is stacked and with a lot of young, strong quarterbacks and some teams that are starting to pick it up on the defense side. You don't have no choice, J. Lou, to get your defense right, man, because you got these offenses that can put up 30, 40 points a game now.
I mean, when you got half a Billy Pat still running the conference, you got to be able to go with him, and hopefully you can stop him. And so, to your point, when you look around, a lot of these teams in the AFC you're building to beat the Chiefs, to knock off the Chiefs, and it's similar to the same. Get me a team, give me some weapons where we can put up points and get me some pass rushes. Because again, I think everybody's defaulted that they're gonna get their passing yards, but we've all seen, and the Titans have run the playbook for the last couple of years and just come up short twice against Kansas City when it matters. But they showed how you beat him just by getting pressure with the 4 and keeping him in a box. It's interesting to see everybody else try that maneuver now.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that we don't have KC on the schedule this year after the past couple of years.
Man, yes.
Had KC on the
we
schedule.
have no KC or no Buffalo.
No Buffalo, no KC. Maybe we have a chance.
Yes.
So now week 3 puts us on the road in Cleveland. So last time we went to Cleveland, we beat the brakes off of them. You know, Baker Mayfield was the quarterback, and there was a lot of chatter going on that the Titans went tough. You know, they go on there and they almost put up a 40 burger on them and walked away with a victory. And that was Delaney Walker talking about some they were who we thought they were, right?
Yeah.
And so again, though, here's another team, J. Lou, that has had a problem at quarterback. And so now you got the Browns with their first full off season with Deshaun Watson, which is kind of probably be better for them, right? Again, skill positions are set, O-line is solid, and the defense is solid. This is a team that was 14th overall, considering the quarterback situation they had last year. 14th overall in offense with 349 yards of total offense, 21 points a game, and 14th in total defense. With over 300 yards a game and 22 points given up. And so added Dalvin Tomlinson, the defense tackle from Minnesota, free agent, and Juan Thornhill, safety out of KC, big names. Of course, they traded for Elijah Moore, and they just recently traded for Zadarius Smith, defensive end from Minnesota. And so they add another couple of pieces to that defensive front, which already had Myles Garrett and others. And so you got a defense that's pretty solid. J. Lou, on the road at Cleveland, getting late in September. It's gonna be a tough game, man, with the full off season with Deshaun Watson.
I was gonna say that right there is I think that's gonna be the difference maker for Cleveland this year. They should be you would think on paper they should be contending with your Baltimore's and your Cincinnati's for that AFC North. If Deshaun lives up to what Watson's has been, you got to think he had a year and a half basically off from football, and then came back out there and had his ups and downs last year. So I'm like you, I think a full off season, knowing that he's starting week 1, got everything that's going on pretty much behind him. I think you see that offense move much more efficiently than it did last year. That defense is going to be that defense. And again, this team is what the Titans want to do, because they want to run the ball, and they've got two of the best. Now Kareem Hunt's
Kareem Hunt's not mistaken.
So they don't have that 1-2 punch right there, but Chubb is still top 3 backs in the league. So you would think that we've had our struggles against Deshaun Watson. We beat him and he's beat us. So I mean, I think that's the good thing, about you're familiar with him, Vrabel and familiar with him with all the Houston ties, and then us playing him a few times. So you're familiar with it with that, but you still got to strap on and go get him. But I'm like you. I think this is a dog. It's gonna be a dog fight in this match.
Yeah.
And actually, we talked about no Green Mile. We got a mini Green Mile if you started with this one and run it to London, run it all the way to London. I think that's probably, when you look at our schedule, that's probably the toughest stretch that we got. Indy, and I put Indy in there, even though they got a rookie quarterback. Rivalry game is a rivalry game. Right. So that's a nice little stretch right there. And we know our luck with rookie quarterbacks anyway. So
yeah, I look at the Colts. Of course, I don't look at them as talent-wise as Jacksonville, but the Titans have been running the division the past few seasons. So now, they want to get back up on top. And, you hear their owner all the time as he talks about beating the Titans. So, I agree with you on that, man. It's not the same Green Mile as last year, but it's going to be certainly a tough task, especially like you said, starting with this game here on the road. Cleveland didn't have any first or second round picks due to that Washington trade, but they did get Cedric Tillman in the 3rd round, man, which I thought, was a great pick for them, a burner that can stretch the field, right? And so this team's got a lot of talent, man. It's really interesting to see, how they come together. Now, here's another coach that, maybe they give him another, right? Well, he got a quarterback this year, right?
I think he's on the hot seat just because Haslam is just the owner that just pulls the trigger like that. I think that's the only reason, because I think this is the time he's saying, hey, you've got an off season. We've given Deshaun the worst contract, good for player, worst for every other player contract that you can get with 200 and something guaranteed. this has to be the make or break year for the Browns, especially not having the draft picks, the whole nine. This is what you paid for. So I think that this is the year that they feel like, hey, he's got to get us. It might be division or bust. I don't even know if playoffs, you wild card, one round exit, you might be able to stretch it. But I think on paper, they think they have a team that should contend for the division.
And they do on paper, they do.
Yeah.
Greedy Williams, he went to the Eagles, so they lost him in the secondary, but they still got Denzel Ward back there, one of the best corners in the league. And so again, like I said, a lot of interesting talent. This is going to be a intriguing matchup for the Titans, especially coming off of the Saints on the road and then the Chargers at home, and seeing how those two games play out. And then you got another AFC game, because these AFC teams like the Chargers and the Browns, these are potential teams you'll see in the playoffs, right? And so you need those tiebreakers, right, to get that home field game in these situations. And so another tough game on the road with the Browns that finished 7-10 last year, 7-10 with Jacoby at quarterback, right? And
for half the season.
For half a season. Then you had Deshaun come in, and so again, for them to be ranked where they were statistic wise, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. So again, it's gonna be a tough game, man. And then you roll back at home against the Bengals on the October 1st at 12 noon for a kickoff. And here is Vrabel's kryptonite. He is yet to beat Joe Burrow. 0-3 against Joe. With 3 straight losses, beat him as he was a rookie that year. And of course, they knock us off in the playoffs, and then they come here last year and beat us at home. And J. Lou, man, here's the thing: the game against the Bengals was won in the trench. They out toughed us last year, and I hate to say that, but they out physical the physical football team that we're known to have here. Offense, of course, 8th overall with 360 yards, averaging 26 points a game, 16th on the defensive side of the ball, 335 yards a game with 20 points a game. And the protection of Joe Burrow is the utmost, right? And so that's why they signed Big Zeus, Orlando Brown Jr. And he said, I'm coming. I'm left tackle, and I'm protecting my quarterback, J. Lou.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow's he's tough. I mean, because we still beat him up in Cincy a little bit. Last year when he was here, but he's still he's Burrow. This is the game, man. It's like you said, this is Vrabel's kryptonite. We cannot figure out the Bengals and Joe Burrow, and it's probably a game that they do just similar to how we do our show. I'm sure the teams break it down in quarters. This is one that first of all, you want to hold. This is the sad part about it. No, we played them in Cincy his rookie year. Yep. But you've had them here the last 2 games. This will make 3 in a row that you've had at Nissan Stadium. You've got to hold serve at home. And again, this is another AFC game. AFC North. I think you play 3 out of the 4 AFC North teams in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing the AFC North is known for, is being physical. And I think you saw that with Cincy last year. I mean, Baltimore and Pittsburgh have set the standard of physicality, and you've seen Cleveland over the years get that. And then last year, to your point, Cincinnati, the offensive side and defensive side of the ball in the trenches were out physical. They're more physical than us. So this is a game that I think you put your big boy pads on. And this is one where I think Big Jeff and some of those guys really want to get after it and show, because they felt embarrassed. I was just not speaking for them, but just hearing the tone of it, they felt embarrassed that nobody's supposed to come in and push them around, and they were pushed around last year.
Yeah, and Dion said that the Bengals out tough us during the stretch of injuries last year. So if you think about it, if you go back and think about that game, that started a losing streak right there. I think the Titans came into that game 7-3 or 7-4, was it?
Yeah, they were 7-4 after. Were they 7-4 after Green Bay?
They were 7-3 after Green Bay. They were 7-3 after Green Bay. So yeah, so it went downhill from there. And so you can say the injuries had a part in it. I'm not discrediting that, because you had Dennis Daly started left tackle, right? And you had Rundez at left guard, although he played pretty good. And then you had Brewer playing center, Brewer playing left guard, who was getting, him and Daly on the same side was not a good recipe at all. And so then you had, of course, you had Deion's boy Todd Downing calling plays. And so a mixture for disaster. So yeah, they did. They they pushed us around a little bit on the defensive line. I mean, and Big Jeff admitted to it, right? And they talked about it a little bit.
Oh, he did.
And so, like you said, this is a game that they really want to get after. And it's interesting. Like you said, they've played at this point 2 of the AFC North teams, one from the West, and then a division game, right? And so it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be a tough schedule. And I think they said the Titans had the 4th easiest schedule. Did I see that right? Am I making that up?
Yeah, they 28th easy. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, so.
That's why you throw those. The only thing I know the Titans got different is we got, instead of having, like we mentioned already, instead of having Kansas City and Buffalo on our schedule, we get who we get out of the West this year.
You got the Chargers, of course.
Chargers, and we get Miami.
Miami.
Yeah,
and Miami.
Yeah, that's the only difference. We ain't got a first place schedule. But other than that, I mean, Jacksonville will be playing the same teams. And then we get Seattle. Instead of getting the 49ers, we get Seattle because we got the first place NFC West as well. So, but yeah, it's not easy by any stretch of the mean, especially when it's not easy when you're AFC. I mean, the quarterbacks that you got to play. And again, I think they're taking into account, you got to think the Titans got at minimum 5 games against rookie quarterbacks,
right?
4 in the division, and then Carolina. So you take that with a grain of salt. But outside of that, man, we got some tough sled. You play a lot of the young guns that we will see. When you stop and look. When you stop and look at it, we talked about the Green Mile last year based off the quarterbacks, and those were the quarterbacks that's basically established in the names, your Josh Allens, your Half a Billy Patch, your Aaron Rodgers. Now you look at it, we've got the next class coming. We've got your Tuas on here. We've got your Sunshines in Jacksonville. We got Lamar Jackson. So you've still got some tough sledding at quarterback, and it just so happens that majority of the good quarterbacks reside in the AFC.
Right. At this point in time, right? And you got a Pittsburgh team that's kind of in flux a little bit, trying to build on Kenny Pickett's rookie season. You got the NFC South, like I mentioned, man. You got Ritter for the Falcons, and you got Bryce Young for the Panthers, and you got new guys at Derek Carr. And so, like you said, it's going to be an interesting season with these teams and these new quarterbacks, and with the Jacksonville coming on strong at the end of the season and knocking us off at the end. But I think it's going to be a little different, man. If we can just get the offense is going to be the key. The offense is going to be the key. Got to be able to score, man. I just want to see what's going to happen. I'm very interested in seeing this new look, this new style, and maybe we'll see some of the things we were asking for last year, Jay Lou, some single back runs, some up tempo, some play action, more play action than we were doing last year. I was watching, they were replaying the Giants game the other day, and I was watching it, man. I was looking at it, I was saying, the offense didn't look half bad for a half.
And then we don't know what Todd was thinking. Yeah, man, I think you're gonna see a difference where you'll see some Derrick Henry drives and you'll see some Spears drives. Because again, in my head, where I hear tempo, and again, Vrabel said we got to get fast this offseason. He's tired of having the slowest team on the field, and one way you can negate that is go up tempo, because you tire out the team as well. So does up tempo mean getting fast as well? We don't know. And again, you go back and look. I think you see a lot of 2 tight end sets, just based on that. That's probably why they're confident in the wide receiver group. Us as fans is Burks and a bunch of misfits, and you hope that Burks takes that next step to be there. But I just can't believe NWI is going to be our wide receiver too. But again, if you run with a 2 tight end set, you got the chance to have 2 dynamic tight ends in Wiley the rookie, and we saw what Chig can do, where both of them can be a mismatch on linebackers at any given time. So right. And if you're running 2 tights, more than likely that means we'll see single back sets. And again, I think you see a different scheme in the run game. But I'm with you. Tannehill's his best when he's play action, when he's allowed to be up tempo, and when you're giving him a little bit of freedom. And if you're giving him those 3 things with an offensive line who surely the goodness has to be better than last year. At least we know we have athletic linemen on the team this year. And when you go back and you start looking at some of them, a lot of them are pass blocking is what they're best for, and that's what we struggle with. I mean, he was getting hit by the time he was dropping back. I think Derrick Henry to me was scared to run because he thought he was gonna get hit in the backfield and wasn't nobody there. And he still was getting hit. So
Right.
I mean, Dennis Daly tackled him twice. So
Oh my Lord.
I'm with you. I think we play the first quarter of the season. You want to come out, you want to split 2-2. Honestly, I think we can get 3-1. I think you lose one of the home games. I think you take both on the road, and either the Chargers or Cincy. One of them you lose, and one of them you split. Because you're getting all these teams, I think, early enough in the season where they're still trying to gel for the most part. Now, Cincinnati and the Chargers, not a lot of changes, but it's still a new season to get gelled. But I think what can help us in the first four is our defense should come to play. And our defense, how many times last year did 18 to 20 points would have won a game for us? And I think that'll allow our offense to find its groove. And the defense holds us in there.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me, defensive wise, is the secondary. The secondary is going to have to cover better. They did a pretty decent job last season, but you saw, and it was a reason why we were not that good in pass defense because nobody could run the ball, right? You had the number 2 rush defense in the league, and you had teams throwing for 300-400 yards just because they couldn't run the ball. But they would get those breaks that would go their way, and then they would, win those close games, right? And so, but I agree with you completely. Will says it's Burks and the Little Rascals as far as the receivers.
I like that.
That's so funny. Claude Williams, man, thank you for joining us. He says the Titans are too predictable. Mix it up, play action, up tempo, and take some risk. We hope so. Tim Kelly sounds like he's installing that type of offense, but we'll see. It's a lot to ponder because we don't know, right? There's some unknown, and and Vrabel is the Belichickian of the Titans, and he won't show nothing at all during the preseason.
At all. I think the one thing you like, man, that you like to hear, we mentioned Burks. He stayed in town the whole off season. He looked leaner when they had him the other day, and then, as much as everybody goes back and forth about Tannehill, and again, June 1st is coming up, so who knows what can happen between any of those big three. At least Tannehill's been in the building the whole time too, and been in OTAs and been a part with Tim Kelly as they're installing this offense. So I think that's a good sign that your offensive leaders are really working together to try to change this and have something new. Because again, I think defense, you see a few tweaks, especially some of the coaches that he brought on the staff, Chris Harris, especially in DBs. I think as you said, and the rumblings are out there that I think they give him a chance to fix Mr. Farley. But I'm curious to see what he does with that talent, because when you look across it, there's some the Titans DBs have the chance to be one of the most underrated secondaries in the league because of the youth that's there, and if they play up to the potential, if they can stay healthy and play up to the potential, that has a chance to be a very scary secondary that I think nobody would see coming. If that makes sense. So you're hoping that Chris Harris can get that out of them, because I think the deficiencies we got right now would probably be in that linebacker core. But it's going to be interesting on that offensive side of the ball to really see how they come out, how we utilize what weapons we do have. Because again, I go back to Tim Kelly's last year in Houston. He's the sole reason that they didn't draft a quarterback last year, because they were dead set on Davis Mills, because he had him playing like he should have been in the league. So I mean, that was with Davis Mills, with not a Derrick Henry, a threat back there. So I'm optimistic on what this offense might do.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Dion. He says we don't have a world beater receivers, but we can scheme them open and down and then do that. We talked about that so much last year. Is that you can scheme your guys open. They don't have to be DeAndre Hopkins type level of receivers. Now, you would like to have somebody like that. You would like to have the big body, route running guys, some of the top echelon Justin Jefferson type guys, Jamar Chase. Yeah, who wouldn't want receivers like that? But You can scheme your guys open by the type of routes you run, the type of scheme that you run. Let's go back to Arthur Smith, what he did with Corey Davis and those guys, right? You had Tajay Sharp, you had some not big big name guys. Corey Davis, of course, he was a first round pick, and he was expected to do some things, but Arthur Smith had an offense that two tight ends, Delaney and Janu, and it was working. And the Titans were averaging 27 points a game, and the offense was just moving the ball. And so you can do it to that point, Deon. I appreciate that point, man. You can do it.
Was last year was Tim Kelly's first year with us, right?
Correct.
So 2 years ago, the last game of the season against Houston, when we almost blew it for the division.
Yes.
What was that receiver? One of those New England Patriot receivers that was
Archuleta. He was killing us. Archuleta.
Killing us. And it goes back to what Deon just mentioned about scheming them. Tim Kelly was scheming him and Rex Burkhead, scheming both of them open the second half, and they were making plays. So that point right there is something that I think we bring to the table that the good old Todd didn't have, where he's going, and you've already heard him say it, that we got to get our ball players have to have the ball. So, I mean, it's too many times last year that Chig would get 6 targets one game and get 1 next, and he would get outplayed by Jeff Swain. So, I mean, that's I think that Tim Kelly's a little bit smarter in that, to know that, hey, let me scheme some plays to design to get it to your Burks and your Chigs and my playmaker.
Another comment, Will says, we'll be up for a CD reunion. CD, Corey Davis, the rumor was, I was reading last week, maybe week 4, that the Jets were planning on signing him back if they hadn't already done it. But I would love to have him back.
I would love to have him back. They didn't cut him yet.
They didn't cut him yet. He might be a June 1st guy.
Yeah, he might be a June 1st guy. I'd love to have him back. I think I would welcome that reunion. That gives you, one thing that he's gonna do that Vrabel loves. He's gonna block downfield.
Run block. That's right. That's right.
He's gonna run block. So, and again, that gives you. I think I like. I don't think. I know I like Burks and Davis as a 1-2 as opposed to Burks and NWI.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would be open to a reunion here as well.
Again, I think though, if you look at the keep an eye out for those undrafted free agents and receivers, and to your point about the young secondary too, there are some guys that they signed undrafted too that could be potential diamonds. Some pretty good sized DBs with good speed, and I can't think of the name of them. I'll have them for the next show, but yeah, they again, it's gonna be interesting to see how that all pans out with the youth that was injected in this team this year. I mean, even on the offensive line, like you said.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about that more, but the linebacker situation still kind of worried me a little bit, the depth at middle linebacker, because there's not a whole bunch. You got Gibby and you got Campbell, and then of course Monty Rice and Al-Zazier, Shazler, starting inside. And so after that, who do you have, right? So that kind of put us in the same situation last year, right, with David Long and Cunningham. Then after that, you had Monty Rice, who was hurt early on in the year, and you saw what happened there with the slow-footed guys behind him. So.
Slow-footed is being nice.
Right. So, man, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie on there, J. Lou. G Witt's on vacation, man. He'll be back with us here in another week or so, enjoying himself across the pond. So let's see. Roddy says, what do y'all think about the receiver we drafted from UT Martin? So I'll let Mr. J. Lou talk a little bit about that guy, because that's his alma mater, if y'all didn't know. And I don't want to talk about the Skyhawks on this show. Go ahead.
Colton, I think he's going to be a sneaky pickup. Very athletic, good hands. Can work on drops a little bit with his catching traffic, but he's got some good route running abilities and skills. UT Martin, Division 1 AA used to be, whatever they call them, that FCS. But FCS, go back and put on and they played. I'll tell you this. So the head coach at Martin this past year, his senior year, came to Colton and his father and was like, "Hey, I completely understand if y'all want to go into the portal," because he saw the talent that was there, and Martin's a smaller school, not the national brand that you see. And him and his dad was like, "No, this is what we committed to. We're gonna ride this thing out." And he only set, the career record for receptions at UT Martin, and he really balled out. Go back and watch that UT game, because that was a game that they was on TV, and UT of course blew them out. But just go back and watch some of the stuff he did against SEC competition. And he played SEC competition yearly, because they're always the money game. But
Right.
yeah, I think you definitely will see, once we get the pads on and get him out and working, that he's not going to be a typical 7th-round pick. You're hoping he's one of these guys that can be like a Cortland Finnegan, a diamond interrupter who was drafted 7th, who literally had a handful of teams that had already set up undrafted free agent deals with him before the Titans called to make him the pick in the 7th round. So I think he's gonna be a good for the hometown.
I think so too, man. Like you said, a big body guy, 6'3", 215, can run, can stretch the field. Had over 100 yards against the Vols when they played them. And I think it's just one of those, again, those sneaky picks that you really had to do your scouting homework to find him, right?
Yes.
Because he's not on that big stage. Now, we'll see. I hope that he'll turn out to be a dog. They'll add a dynamic to that receiver group that we hadn't had, somebody of that type of speed and size to get down the field. And then Rodney also asked about the Kearis Jackson, the receiver out of Georgia. So yeah, so he's an all-around guy. He returns kicks, kickoff returns, punt returns. He led Georgia in receiving yards in 2020. He's one of those guys, though, that I think he'll probably contribute more on special teams as far as return game goes. Maybe, we don't have Hilliard anymore, and so I don't know if they want to put Spears back there or not. But here's a guy that could do those things for them. And he was able to, at 17 yards, a punt return. You don't want to put Kyle back there, even though Kyle was good. We see that Kyle had an issue with staying healthy, and maybe they take that off his plate this year so he can be more of an effective weapon on the offensive side of the ball. But I think it's another good scouting job to find somebody that hadn't been drafted and again to come in. Now he's 5'11", 5'11", almost 200 pounds, and so ran a 4.55, and so I think it's another good pickup, man. Like I said, these undrafted free agents, I think they did a really good job. Your guy J. Lou Pop-Tart was an undrafted free agent, and so there's some guys out there that could be found.
Who else? Naquan,
yep, Naquan. That's right. And so and I agree with you, Dion. Dion says Jacob Copeland and Trayshawn Harrison are still signs for us. Yeah, we talked about those receivers and what they're going to bring to the table: youth and speed and some pretty good size. And so, yeah, man, it's gonna be pretty interesting, J. Lou. I don't want to rush time, but it's gonna be interesting to see once camp starts, how this thing's gonna shake out. And as the season goes along, we're already almost at the end of May already, so it's just right around the corner. If you really think about it.
They got their first. Is it first official OTA Tuesday? I think they're on the field Tuesday with rookies and vets on the field and open to the media. So you'll see what veterans did show up. I mean, I think the wild card will be Bayard. Derrick Henry never shows up to these. Big Jeff, I doubt he shows up to these, but Bayard has usually in his time has been to these, especially being local. So it'd be interesting to see how that dynamic is between the team and him still.
Again, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie on there, J. Lou, man, first quarter of the schedule. What you say, 2-2? Did you say 2-2, 3-1? You said 3-1.
I said 2-2. I could see 3-1, but I'll officially go 2-2.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna say 2-2, and I think that to me it's imperative, and I'm just saying this, not being Captain Obvious, but they got to get at least 2 of those AFC games. They got to get 2 of those games to help with the tiebreaker situation going down the stretch. Because this year the division's gonna be just a little bit more challenging with the infusion of talent that's came in. And so you can't really count those games like they were being counted in previous seasons. But Dion says he can see 4-0. Hey, man, I like that too. I like
that, Dion.
But
I'm
yeah,
trying to see the Chargers open up with the late game against the Dolphins. That's a tough.
Are they on
week
the
one
road or at
game.
home?
They're at home.
Okay.
It's a 325 kickoff,
Okay.
and then you get them that next week. That's the one I think you hope they should beat the Saints. Now again, it's who knows, but I give them the Saints. I think the Chargers is one that you can sneak by, and if they hit that 2-0 mark, then I would say 3-1 because I think you split with Cleveland and Cincy, and again Cincy. I just don't.
We got to
I don't
get
know
over
how
the
they get
Cincy
over
hump,
that.
man.
Yeah.
We got to get over the
We got
Cincy
to.
hump. I mean, Vrabel's got to come
Yes.
up with the plan, man. We can.
He's
He
got
is
to.
0-3 against Burrow. He is 0-3
Yes.
against Burrow. Has not beaten, and it's been close games down to the end.
Close.
Down to the end.
And you've got all of this is the third one in a row you've got at home.
At home.
Like the third one in a row you got at home.
So they already gonna come in talking. Oh man.
Yes.
I can't wait. Man. This is gonna be devastating. But again, man, thank y'all for joining us tonight for another live episode. Join us next time. We'll be breaking down the second quarter of the schedule. We talk about the Colts and the Ravens and the London game, and you got the bye week, and you got the Falcons and Pittsburgh to finish up that quarter. And another tough stretch, J. Lou, with Indy and Anthony Richardson. Who knows if he's going to be the starting quarterback or the Andy Dalton's going to take the reins, and maybe by week 2 he turns them over. But you got Lamar Jackson with OBJ. He's got a new weapon, new toy there. And then Atlanta, they got a pair of tight ends now, like Arthur Smith and Bijan Robinson, running.
Yes.
Hey, you might say the schedule is easy, but I don't care.
Yes.
It's just, that's not easy for me. So
anybody
can be beat. Right.
Yes.
Right. Will says looks like Joe Burrow started to be our Andrew Luck. I hope not, man. We could never beat Andrew Luck. We could never beat him.
Andrew Luck retired undefeated.
Right. That was the best thing to happen for us, man, when he retired. I was like, man, maybe we start winning the division again. So, but, I was listening I was reading something, and Ursi was talking about people I'd be careful about trying to talk to Luck because they still own the rights to him officially. And they was talking about trying to talk him to come out. It was the Commanders wasn't trying to call him up to say if he would come out of retire. Okay.
Nah, he's loving life on the farm.
Right. Around his family, man. But again, thank y'all for joining us, man. Eddie out there, J. Lou, we are halftime adjustments. Catch us next time. We put that information out for the second quarter schedule. But we are out of here, man.